Do you believe in demons, Father Howard? Do you believe the devil can enter a person's soul?
It's time for another episode of Romeroween.
As we continue to chug along with Romeroween, I thought that this would be a good episode to wrap up the rest of Romero's cameos. I have already talked about 2 of Romero's cameos in past episodes. The cameos in question were from Dead Eyes Open and Phineas and Ferb's Night of the Pharmacist. In case you missed, forgot, or don't really give a shit about what happened previously, here's a brief refresher.
Don Adaded. Don?
Thanks, Gordon. I'm standing here in downtown Danville. It's an unbelievable scene. Pharmacists touching people who turn into pharmacists.
Wir sind nicht die Einzigen, die mit diesem Problem zu tun haben. Es passiert überall, weltweit. Auf einen Lebenden kommen 2 Tote. Sehr darum, wie es dazu kommen konnte. Ich meine, wir sollten anfangen zu handeln.
Now, were either of these cameos all that memorable? No, not really. But I will say that even though the Phineas and Ferb cameo wasn't the best, the entire episode is a love letter to Romero, and that is freaking cool. While I'm on the subject of Phineas and Ferb, there's actually one thing I forgot to mention when I did that review. Did you happen to catch George Romero's name at the beginning of that clip?
Don Adaded.
Did you get it? Don Adaded? Don Adaded? Dawn of the Dead? His name is a play on the movie Dawn of the Dead. That's pretty clever, guys. That's 1,000 times more clever than anything the people who made Dead Eyes Open could ever do. And frankly, that movie can just fuck off.
My God.
Now the question becomes, what about the rest of Romero's cameos? Are they any good? Well, as you're about to see, not really. Most of these cameos are from movies he directed or worked on, save for one. These are all pretty famous movies, and I didn't feel the need to spend a lot of time retreading over them. Besides, I talked about my Love of the Dead series way back in episode 19. Let's start with the most famous movie that George Romero probably had a cameo in, Silence of the Lambs. If you have never heard of this movie, well, get some fucking culture.
Hey.
We found her.
Let's go.
It's your turn, Doctor.
Out.
Tell me his name.
Sorry, ma'am, I've got orders. Had to put you on a plane.
Tell me his name, Doctor.
Clarice!
Man, that was super exciting. He actually spoke a line. Did you catch it?
Hey.
We found her.
In case you missed it, because you might have, he said, "We found her." I don't know, it's kind of cool to see Anthony Hopkins and Romero share a scene together. Too bad they weren't doing anything worth note. This is the big problem with this review. I don't have a lot to say about most of these cameos. There's not a lot going on. I guess what we can take away from this cameo and the previous 2 is that Romero is really good at holding things in movies. Leaving Silence of the Lambs behind, let's take a trip back to some of Romero's early non-zombie films. First up is his movie, The Crazies. Here we briefly see Romero being hustled away by some soldiers. Blink and you will miss him. What am I supposed to say about this? George Romero does a good job at looking really annoyed? You could say, why am I complaining? I'm the idiot that decided to do an entire episode about a director and every cameo he's ever done. Next up is his cameo in the film Martin. Here, he plays a Catholic priest.
Do you believe in demons, Father Howard? Do you believe the devil can enter a person's soul?
I don't know what to believe about that.
You don't know, Father Howard? You see, this is what I mean.
Fascinating subject, actually. You should talk to Father Zulimus about this.
Father
Zulimus.
Zulimus.
He's a great old guy. He claims to have actually done the old mystical rites for real. You know, he went to see that film, The Exorcist. He said they did it all wrong.
Zulimus.
I don't suppose you saw that movie. I thought it was great.
I will say that this is one of Romero's better cameos. I don't know, he just feels like an actor here as opposed to a director pretending to act, which is what he does in most of his cameos. Okay, to be fair, most of his cameos involve him being pushed somewhere or walking or holding a microphone. But I'm gonna give it to him, man, god damn it. And that line about The Exorcist is just golden. It's always cool to see another director give a nod to another director, because that's exactly what happened when director Jonathan Demme asked George Romero to cameo in his new movie, Silence of the Lambs. It's the circle of directors, baby. Now that we're done munching on the hors d'oeuvres, we can finally move on to the main course, what George Romero is most famous for, the Living Dead films. More specifically, his cameos. And there's no better place to start than with the original Night of the Living Dead.
We have statements.
You're coming from a meeting regarding the explosion of the Venus probe, is that right?
Yes, that was the subject of the meeting.
Do you feel there is a connection between this and the phenomenon?
There's a definite connection.
In other words, you feel that the radiation on the Venus probe is enough to cause these mutations?
There was a very high degree of radiation.
Well, just a minute. I thought we decided that is not proved yet.
Was the satellite, when the satellite was exploded?
An unusual amount of radiation, enough to cause mutation under certain circumstances.
Could have happened to have a bearing on it.
Look at that. We got a fresh-faced 20-something Romero working on his first film, and he's playing a reporter yet again. Granted, this would have been the first time he played a reporter, but I mean, come on! This is the third cameo I've covered where he's holding a microphone. Does he just like to hold fucking microphones when he's doing cameos? This scene was shot in Washington, D.C., because that's where the scene's supposed to take place. But did you notice where they filmed in front of?
I thought we decided that is not proved yet.
Was the satellite, when the satellite was exploded?
An unusual amount of radiation.
Yep, that's the U.S. Capitol building. Pretty crazy when you think about it. According to Romero, they didn't have a permit. They just filmed in front of it, which is the definition of underground, independent guerrilla filmmaking. And I think that's what makes this scene so special. You probably wouldn't be able to do this today because you'd be arrested. Romero's next Dead cameo was in Dawn of the Dead.
These are human beings. Who's on camera? What the hell's on camera? Who the hell is on camera to it, boy? Roll the rescue station. Get me another list.
Sure, I'll just pull it out of my ass.
Franny, get the new list of rescue stations. Charlie's receiving on the emergency.
Operating rescue stations.
I have to say that this is probably my favorite of the Dead cameos. I don't really know why. I guess it's just because he's front and center wearing his trademark scarf. If you look at the Night of the Living Dead cameo, he's just some reporter interacting with a scientist and a general. But here, he actually has dialogue with one of the main characters, Franny. And for whatever reason, I just think that's really cool. The next Romero Dead cameo was in Day of the Dead. I know, we don't see his face, but the scarf and the musical cue, they are the Dead giveaway. Get it? Dead giveaway? George Romero, The Living Dead, zombies? I thought it was pretty clever. Oh, like you could do any better. You know what? You probably could. Anyways, why didn't Romero want his face shown? Well, the audio commentary gives us a clue why.
Yeah. Hey, that's me walking by with
you
my...
can tell with the lucky scarf.
Lucky scarf. But that was my only little... I used to always like to show my face, but then I got tired of the way I looked.
Jesus, Romero, talk about no self-esteem, but I guess you're the director, so whatever you want, it's your call. It would be almost 20 years later that Romero's next Dead cameo would take place, and that would be in the film Land of the Dead.
Take that, you smelly zombie!
We get a cameo of Romero entertaining kids with a punch-and zombie show. Again, he chose not to show his face, and if you weren't really paying attention, you could easily miss him. This cameo is so obscure that when I saw this in the theater, I had no idea he even had a cameo. It wasn't until the DVD came out that I listened to the commentary and found out that he actually had a cameo. Talk about fucking obscure. Back when Land of the Dead came out, everyone kind of assumed that that would be the last of the Dead movies. Well, we were wrong, because 3 short years later, we would be graced by the next Dead film, Diary of the Dead. And once again, Romero would make a cameo.
These attacks was carried out by a bunch of illegal immigrants was mistakenly pronounced dead before the attacks took place. The only time they was dead was when my guy shot them.
They changed it. They recut it.
Like I said, the only time
The
they
media
was
were
dead
lying
was
to
when my
us,
guy shot 'em.
or the government was lying to them.
Hey, he's a cop, and guess what? The microphone is back. He's not holding it, but there's still a fucking microphone. That's 4 cameos where a microphone is involved. As a director, he's well known for using social commentary and comedy in his films, so when it comes to cameos, that's gotta be his hallmark. His cameo hallmark has to be being seen with fucking microphones. Otherwise, I don't know how to explain it. In 1990, George Romero and the other people behind the original Night of the Living Dead decided to remake it. Romero didn't direct it, but he did have a small cameo.
It has been confirmed that the bodies of the dead are being reactivated by forces as yet unknown.
Got that right.
If you didn't notice, he wasn't Tony Todd. He was the voice on the radio. Apparently, this was still in the I don't like my face phase. And that's it. That's all of Romero's cameos but one. I saved one for my next review, and it's a film called A Fish Story. It's a movie about dads, death, fishing, the state of Maine being filled with nothing but Canadians, and a heartwarming cameo by George Romero. So, till next time.
He's very near the end. In fact, I haven't heard he may be gone.